Welcome back to another Fly and Brian show, rock review. This time I'm going to talk about the latest album from a band from New York, USA that normally does conceptual albums, but that is not the case this time, as Coheed and Cambria have went away from the Amory Wars to do a regular album called The Color Before the Sun. It is a 10-track effort and their 8th studio album. Before we get into talking about each track individually and giving the thing a grade from A to F and 1 to 100 and telling you if I think that you should purchase this album or not, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience with Coheed and Cambria. I have been a fan of theirs since I think 2008 when I discovered Welcome Home on Rock Band. And I'm not ashamed. I spent a lot of hours perfecting and honing my skills on Rock Band so I could play Welcome Home on the expert level. And by golly, I got that done. I think the best score I ever had was 98% on expert. So maybe I wasted a lot of my time doing that. But anyway, I love Welcome Home. And since that time, I have dove a little deeper into their entire discography. I like Favor House, Atlantic, The Dark Side of Me, Suffering, Feathers. Feathers really reminds me of some 80s rock at the beginning there. Pretty neat song. And also, I used to have a job at a factory. If you've ever worked at a factory, you know that it is the most boring thing in the world. 8 hours of pure boring. And when I was at my job, you were not allowed to speak to anybody while you were clocked in. You could do it on the 15-minute breaks that we had twice a day or the 30-minute lunch break, but while you were working, you weren't allowed to talk to anybody. But you could listen to your headphones all day long. So I listened to a lot of music, but of course you know that normal songs are between 3 and 5 minutes long, and so you can really use those to gauge time, and that really sucks because you listen to a song and like, oh, that was a nice song, but now I still have 7 hours and 55 minutes yet to go in my work day, and so I like to just lose track of time when I was at my job, and so listening to 3 to 5 minute songs really didn't do that. Maybe you could listen to Freebird over and over while you're at work because that would make time go by a little faster. But so I found Coheed and Cambria and their conceptual albums, and I really liked it because you could get lost in the story of each album. And so like it's an hour long instead of 5 minutes long. So you just listen to that 8 times and you got one work day that went by. I ended up listening to podcasts eventually, but so Coheed and Cambria for a while really helped me get through my workday. So let's talk about each track individually, then we're going to talk about the thing as a whole. Then of course we're going to grade it. The men who are responsible for creating this piece of musical art are Claudio Sanchez, vocals and guitar, lead guitar, Travis Stever, guitar and backing vocals, Josh Eppard, drums, percussion and backing vocals, Zach Cooper on bass and backing vocals, and then some additional instruments. We had Roy Aggie on horns, Mike Haynes also on horns, Jennifer Cummer also on horns, Avery Bright strings, Melody Morris strings, Eleanor Denig strings, Jay Joyce, Rhodes piano, and Claudio Sanchez's wife, additional background vocals. There was some synth world, and Nick Steinhardt did the cover art. This record was released on October 16th of 2015, and it starts off with track number 1, Island. It is 5 minutes and 2 seconds long. It starts off with some typical intro track, atmospheric kind of sounds. It's actually a train in the background, but it doesn't end up just being an intro track because it goes into an actual song. I've talked about this a lot of times on my reviews, but I love the mix and how they do a great job of making me feel like I'm in the center of the band when the guitars and stuff are switching from left to right channels. All instruments being used are prevalent throughout this track. Bass guitar, tambourine, the whole shebang. The lyrics and meaning behind this song are cool. Sanchez says it's about how he feels trapped inside of his little apartment in New York. This is a fun way to begin a different style of record for Coheed and Cambria. Track number 2, The Eraser. No, just Eraser. Same thing happens here, and honestly has happened in most of CNC's music. There's a fun mix of the channel switching from left to right once again. Zach Cooper is the driving force of this song with his bass guitar effort. The bass isn't prevalent on this album as you would expect on a Tool record, but it is still a lot of fun. I love the lyrics and how they depict an identity crisis Sanchez was going through when he was writing this record. Track number 3, Colors. It starts off with ambient bass guitar and simple yet grand drums. There is a periodic single guitar crunch. In an interview with Team Rock, Sanchez explains that these single notes were meant to represent his personas coming together. This album might not be conceptual, but at track number 3, I can already tell and notice that there will be a general theme throughout the record. Colors feels highly artistic, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Track number 4, Here to Mars. This is actually the first track that I heard off the record. It was one of 3 singles that were released prior to the rest of the album as a way to get us hyped for the album's release. The first single was You Got Spirit Kid, and the third single was Eraser. I actually played Here to Mars on my college radio station as soon as it was released, and I did not see that it was going to be a love song by the title, but it is. This isn't your typical love song though, which makes it so much better. The lyrics are powerful and the instruments are on the same level. It is a great tune. Moving on to track number 5, Ghost. The beginning reminds me of some Death Cab for Cutie. I Will Follow You Into the Dark, specifically. The song is as chill as a Coheed song will ever get. This track is purely acoustic and is one that I might look into in the future to alleviate myself from an anxiety attack. Maybe you guys have anxiety attacks too, and Ghost might be a good one to help ease yourself. Now that we're halfway through this album, I would like to take a little bit here to show you the album artwork on this record. I'm not going to say too much though about it. Besides that, I like how it isn't the traditional plastic CD case, and there's quite a bit of art to absorb here. So the front, it looks like a house kind of torn apart and the furniture's flying out of it. It's also on a lake or something, maybe flooded perhaps. Open up inside, there's a lot of horns and some outer space shit going on in here. Looks like a guy jumping or climbing a ladder inside. Then the back looks like it's a hole in the wall of a house and you're looking out through it. Then on the way back, there's the track listing, Island, Eraser, Colors, Here to Mars, and Ghost we've already talked about. Still to come, we've got Atlas, Young Love, You Got Spirit Kid, The Audience, and Peace to the Mountain. Now we're looking at the CD. And the booklet, of course, has a little bit more artwork inside of it and all of the lyrics to each and every song. All right, let's move on to the 6th track on the record. Is called Atlas. At first, the feeling is similar to Ghost, but using electric instruments rather than just an acoustic guitar. After 25 seconds, though, it picks up to a medium intensity rock song. I can't say enough how much I love the bass guitar on this record. The lyrics and emotion that Sanchez is evoking with this track will probably touch home for some fathers, especially new fathers. This track isn't one that I'm gonna rock out to. I think it has value. It just isn't my favorite track on the record. Track number 7, Young Love. If I judged the song purely on the title, I would assume that it was another love song. But actually, Sanchez said it's continuing the story of he and his family struggle with moving back and forth from the country to the city and how he accidentally rented his country house out to people that used it as a marijuana farming operation. Interesting. Everything other than the lyrics on this song seem pretty darn simple. The drums are slow but fun. Guitar has one riff that repeats throughout, and the bass guitar is a little more muted on this track than the rest of the tracks on the album. There is a marching band sounding snare drum part about midway through the song. Young Love is simple and relaxed, but all of the sounds combined make it an enjoyable track. I would need to be in the right mood though if I wanted to listen to the song more often, but as a whole I like this song. Track number 8, the first single off of the record, You Got Spirit Kid. This is the first time Sanchez drops a few dirty words on the album. He said the F word one time earlier on the record, but here he drops a few more dirty words. I've talked about it on my previous reviews that as long as the curse words don't happen too frequently and they're just used as a minimum, they can really add some power to the rest of the lyrics. I think that this album did a really good job at using curse words, cuss words, F-bombs, and stuff like that in the right amount. The lyrics seem to be directed toward the cool kid in school and how nobody gives a fuck who that person is after high school. The music video shows Coheed and Cambria with a fat sack of marijuana, which seems to be a theme for at least a couple of songs on this album. This one and Young Love. Lead guitar is the highlight of the song at first, then it moves to the drums and then other percussion, but of course, the lyrics overpower everything else. The actual highlight for me was a blues guitar solo that acts as the outro for this track. Moving on to number 9, The Audience. There is actually no pause between most songs, it just goes right into the next one. There was no pause in between You Got Spirit Kid and The Audience. It sounds like a song that they took right off of Aftermath. It has the crunchiest guitar on the entire record. As the title suggests, the song is about me, you, us, the audience. Midway through the song, Sanchez yells a bit, but showing some frustration to the audience at times. The amplifier settings on the guitar and the intensity with which Sanchez delivers his vocals combine to make this the heaviest track on the record. Track number 10 and the final track on the entire record, Peace to the Mountain. The introduction part is an acoustic guitar that gives me a John Mayer vibe. It is a very peaceful song that at times throughout has a nice beat or vibe of its own. Percussion is the highlight of this song outside of the lyrics and vocals. Down the road, when I look back at this track, I'm going to think of it as a toe tapper. The relaxed feeling and rhythm of the outro track fits perfectly well as the last track on the record. So, let's talk about the album as a whole. Honestly, I'm a little bit sad that this isn't a conceptual album. That aspect of Coheed and Cambria, as I said at the beginning, is one reason that I'm a fan of Coheed and Cambria. With that said, though, this album is expertly put together. Sanchez is obviously a masterful songwriter, and the rest of the guys are talented musicians. I really enjoyed the album, but because it isn't conceptual, I won't rank it among the rest of their discography, and I'm apprehensive to give it a grade. But I'm going to give it an 85 out of 100 or straight up B. A lot of the points of the album that were lost were partially due to my sadness that it's not a conceptual album, and part of it is because of the mellow mood that runs throughout the record. As for if I would recommend purchasing this album, if you're a Coheed and Cambria fan, you probably already bought it, and if not, what the hell are you doing? And if you're not a Coheed and Cambria fan, I still would recommend picking it up if you like rock and roll music that's on the softer side of life with some masterful lyrics involved. However, if you like heavy metal and stuff that gets more heavy than that, I would not recommend picking up this record, but still possibly check it out on Pandora or Spotify to give it your own thoughts on it. My favorite song on the entire record was Here to Mars, and I don't really have a least favorite track on the record because I feel like they were all pretty good. Let me know what your thoughts on Coheed and Cambria's first non-conceptual album in the comment section down below, or you can find me on Twitter at Flying Brian Show. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me for a bit. I'll see you next week. Namaste.